This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Start Spreading the News Yankee program, podcast, show, whatever you'd like to call it. We are delighted this evening because we have the great EJ Fagan here with us. And EJ canceled a trip to Antwerp.
Just for you, Paul.
Yeah. Just for me and our wonderful audience and all of you. But really just for me, EJ? Really?
No, unfortunately, it turns out you don't recover from a surgery in a week and a half, and did not feel confident enough flying and decided to cancel the trip. I am going to miss a little bit of Europe, but I think it was the right decision. I think pretty happy I didn't, because I'm still having trouble. Walking around too much, and Europe is a place known for walking. So no Europe this year. I'll have to go next year.
I understand there's an empty hotel room somewhere in Antwerp.
There is an empty hotel room. I just got charged for it. So if anyone is in Antwerp and would like to pretend to be Edward Fagan, go by the Hampton Inn in I don't even know where it is. Yeah, so
it's probably 100 Antwerp.
Yeah, it's true. It's a
Hampton Inns in Antwerp. But anyway, there's a great saying, and I live by this. I didn't used to. As a runner and a marathoner, until I tore my Achilles and had to have surgery. But there's a great saying: discretion is the better part of valor. So
yeah, I agree. I thought I could push myself. I think if I was a few years younger, maybe I could. But either way, I'm back here. I had a wonderful day watching the Yankees yesterday, and I'm excited to talk about them.
Yes, and I have some things I want to talk about. I wrote a piece on Start Spreading the News today, and as always, I think we look at the Yankees, you and me, EJ, in a similar light, but from slightly different perspectives. I'm getting more jaded by the season, more discouraged, but you always have a much more hopeful look and things like that. So I want to present the big idea of what I came up with in my article today, and I really want to know what you think about it and your perspectives. So I pull it up on my phone here so I don't have to keep changing screens in front of me on the thing. The Yankees right now are 43-35. That's not bad. They're solidly
90-win team, yeah.
Yeah, they're solidly on pace to make the playoffs. Now, we've seen how they do in the playoffs, and we've seen that they don't do well in the playoffs. And I don't see this team as being any different in many regards from those other teams. And, of course, Aaron Judge is hurt. We don't know when he's coming back. But this is my bigger point. At this point. If he's coming back, correct. Before the All-Star break, the Yankees are going to play 3 games against the A's, who are 20-60. 3 games against the Cardinals, who are 32-45, 4 games against the Orioles, who are a very good team, 47-29, and 3 games against the Cubs, who are 37-39. It is possible that the Yankees could go 9-4 over that stretch, and then they would go into the All-Star break with a record of 52-39, which looks glamorous and fantastic and terrific and wonderful. And you say, wow, they're really good. I believe that if they do that record is a mirage, and it's going to be something to make the Yankees decision makers feel like the team is really better than it really is. And I think that would be detrimental to the team's long-term success, because I don't see this year's team as being one that's going to win them a World Series. So saying all that, how do you respond? And how do you digest that?
I'm with you that I think, and we've talked about this on the show, that the Yankees need to think about the long term. They need to play young players. They need to figure out what their roster is going to look like in a few years. And one way to do that is to kind of accept that you're not going to have a great season. But the scenario you just named means the Yankees are on pace to win 93 games. Easy wild card team, and we saw with the Phillies last year that a wild card team can get hot and they can make the playoffs. So if they go 9-4, and I think they could easily do better than that, right? I mean, the Yankees could go, 11-2 during that stretch. They're playing some pretty bad teams. if that were the case, I think you have to at least try and make the playoffs at that point. The Yankees will have Carlos Rodon coming back. Rodon apparently he's had a very strong second rehab start. He's going to have one more rehab start, and he'll be back probably with one game before the All-Star break. The Yankees are going to have Nestor Cortez, who's going to start throwing off the mound this week, come back. Apparently he's feeling much better. His shoulder's feeling better. This is a pitching and defense team that's had one good starting pitcher this season. And if you imagine this team with maybe Severino, who's been looking great lately, back on track.
One game at least.
Clark Schmidt, who's looked really great lately.
Yeah, he's looked a lot better.
Rodon, I think you start looking at the team that looks a lot like the team we envisioned to start the season, which was a pitching and defense team. Now, here's the downside. The hitting is much worse than even I think we considered at the start of the season. And, I think the Yankees could make that better if they wanted to. And they can make it better. One option is to find the young players. I'm going to get my camera all looking good here. Find the young players who are good, right? Sure. Like Oswald Praz is injured right now, but you bring him back when he's healthy. We've been through those names. I think that's possible, right? I mean, if one of those guys breaks out, I think that'd be great. If Estevan Florial all of a sudden learns to play, whatever, right? Those are all options that could happen. But the Yankees could also make some kind of low budget trades that I think are worth exploring. Like, for example, Heimer Candelario, who is a veteran player.
I wanted him a couple of years ago. Switch hitter, used to be on the Tigers. When I was looking,
he's on the Nationals
last season.
He's on the Nationals now, right? He's going to get traded at the deadline, and he's not going to get traded for much. And I really hope the Yankees explore a couple of those kinds of trades, low cost trades where you're not going to have to throw any type of prospect that you've heard of at them. Not even like the prospects we gave up for Joey Gallo, who was Ezekiel Duran, who we'd love to have on the team right now. I mean, I don't think Heimer Candelario and players like that are going to be anywhere near that costly. And there's a couple of other players I'm trying to remember. I had some other outfielders that I saw that I think they could trade for. And I think you could make this team a lot better just with adding, again, like a couple of above average hitters. I mean, it would be a breath of fresh air. I mean, Heimer Candelario is your number 3 hitter on this team at the moment. Then you hope for a couple of bounce backs. You hope for a healthy Aaron Judge. I think there's a world where this is a decent team heading into the playoffs.
At what point then do you because then I extrapolate the idea that I think it's a mirage. I think their record would say that they're better than they really are. Which of course people can debate and disagree with, which is fine. That's why we talk baseball and we have these discussions. Who knows who's right? The Yankees could win every game the rest of the year, or they could lose every game. Obviously, we're exaggerating, but my point is, if it is a mirage, and I think it would be, but if it is, isn't it time, or what might it be time? Might not it be time to trade some of those guys who are going to be free agents at the end of this year? And maybe even the guys for next year, trade those guys for players who are going to help the Yankees actually be a much more solid team next year. I
think if the mirage were real, meaning that, or the mirage actually evaporated, meaning that they don't go 9-4 over that last stretch, they go 5-5, or they win, they lose more games than they lose, whatever, right? That if something really happens there where this team starts to look like it's not going to make the playoffs, I would agree with you. I just don't think that you can or frankly should sacrifice a playoff team that way. The Yankees have some players who I'm sure teams would like, who would trade for, if they would take on their contracts. Not that many of them. Harrison Bader, Luis Severino, a couple of the relievers. There's a couple of guys that you could probably get something for. I don't think that's really what the real value is in a rebuilding stage right now for the Yankees. I think the value would be that you would just clear up some roster spots and play the kids. And I think that is much more valuable than anything else, because you're essentially learning which players will be valuable in the future. I mean, look, in a perfect world, I'd like them to do both. I don't see any reason why Josh Donaldson should be playing right now over a younger player, except for that Peraza is injured right now. Frankly, I don't see any reason why most of the Yankee starters should be playing right now over younger players. I don't see why IKF is on this team still, right? I don't see why, just pick a name out of thin air. Frankly, Gleyber Torres is playing right now. There's a lot of those guys that are just really playing poorly. Giancarlo Stanton. And I think the Yankees could be better a team that wins more games by finding a couple of young guys who are good. But I don't think, I mean, again, if in your scenario, you're on track to be a 93 win team, you have your best player hopefully coming back at some point soon. I had trouble interpreting the Judge news. We can talk about this later if you want, the Judge news this week. I don't know when he's coming back. He's not coming back like, imminently. But Judge could come back in a month, and all of a sudden this looks like a really different team, because then you add the best hitter in baseball on top of Rodon and all those guys, and it starts to look like a really interesting team. And I mean, we've been on the bad side of the playoffs are a crapshoot lately, but the playoffs are a crapshoot. The Phillies were not nearly the best team entering the playoffs, and they made it deep into the World Series. You'd rather be the Astros, who can do it more often, or are just a better team. But I think if you make the playoffs and you're the second wild card seed or whatever, I think you got as good a chance as anyone as making the World Series and getting hot. The Yankees have had the opposite problem, where they've been cold entering the playoffs recently, but that doesn't have to happen forever. You can imagine.
It's interesting. I knew you'd disagree with me, so that's why I think this is a good topic.
I mean, look, to me, like, I don't think I think a well-managed team can do both, right? They can play the young guys and also try to win games.
So you're going to make me ask the question: is this a well-managed team? But Rick jumped in, and I don't want to leave his question out there for 100 years. So we'll take a quick break here.
This is a Paul question.
This is a Paul question.
Rick doesn't care about my book project. My book project is boring stuff.
I mentioned at the end of
my
the
book project's
Dr.
homework.
Radio of Dr. Sem Saturday Yankee show. Maybe one of these days I'll tell you about my next Yankee book projects. This is going to be fun, EJ. I'm going to stump you on this, because the way I phrase the question, you're going to obviously get it wrong. You ever do that mind trick with kids or other people, where you do like, what's 9 + 1?
It's 10.
Okay, you're alert to the fact that I'm going to try to trick you here.
Yeah.
What's 8 + 2?
10.
What's 7 + 3?
10.
What is an aluminum can made out of?
An aluminum can is made out of aluminum.
That's right.
However, it is often called a tin in British parlance.
Right. And so people go 10, 10, 10, aluminum can, tin. Right. So our mind is in one area right now. I'm using that as an example. My next book project, I'm going to actually start researching it on Wednesday of this week, is about the Yankees. But I will bet that even though some of those Yankees are very famous, we have never discussed any of them on this show. And it's not like The Least Among Them, where it was the 29 guys who nobody's ever heard of. These are guys that are very, very well known in many regards, but we've never talked about them. And so it's a project about those Yankees, not the Yankees you're thinking of. You have any idea what I'm talking about?
I do not. The Union Army.
That's correct. Those, yes, exactly.
Wait.
Yes. So I'm going to be in Gettysburg on Wednesday. I have an
appointment. Oh, really? Oh, there we
go.
Never mind. Okay.
That's exactly right. The Yankees, these are famous guys. Abner Doubleday. It's going to be, I have a big idea that could end up being 2 books, maybe 3, that has to do with the Battle of Gettysburg. So I've reached out to the Gettysburg research people, and we're going to be meeting on Wednesday, and hopefully that's the start of something that should be an exciting project. One of those things that I couldn't do when I was working, and one of the things that I've been waiting to do in retirement. Now that I have some time, I'm going to engage in that battle of trying to do this Gettysburg project. That's something I've been thinking about for a long time. So it's about the Yankees, but not these Yankees.
Oh, that sounds really fun. The Gettysburg, I'll tell you, it's one of those areas that a lot of books have been written about. And so if you have a new idea for a book, an idea that hasn't been done before, that's really great. So
it's actually 2 ideas that haven't been done yet. So I'll leave it at that, because I haven't even I've put some notes to paper, but I really haven't put any pen to paper, or what do you call it if you're doing it on a keyboard? Words to...
I don't know. You haven't typed anything yet.
Yes. What do you call that? Type, but it's all fake, because it's just on a computer screen.
Yeah. Right? I don't know. Did you write one of your books on actual paper, or?
Never.
Oh, okay.
No, I've written stuff on actual paper. I wrote some things that never got published in college and things like that. Starting off, I stopped doing that when I first became a. Thank you, Rick. Rick said he's looking forward to it. That's awesome. More to come, but it might not be very soon. Are you look, Rick, Civil War buff? All right, so we're gonna have to talk about that sometime. Because that's fun. I am too. But when I was a principal, when I first started being a principal, I would observe teachers and do all the notes by hand. And then I'd go back to my office and I'd type them up. In the past, the secretaries used to type up the stuff, but I always found that to just be an extra step and it makes other people work. And, a number of years into my career, I said, why am I doing it this way? Why don't I just type instead of writing notes out? It saves a big step and it saves a lot of time. So, yeah. So did you put your book to paper with paper?
I'm a whiteboard guy. So I've written a lot out on whiteboards. The book at the early stages, but not recently. But whenever I sit down to write a paper, and I write a lot of papers, I plot it out on a whiteboard. Go to one of the classrooms, nice big long whiteboard, and it's a good way. This way I like to think. I like to think in arrows and bubbles and processes. So.
What I would love then, I don't know if you can do this, is in your book. It would be awesome if there's a picture of the original idea of where your book came from.
I didn't keep that. So no, I don't know. The book is going to have lots of pictures, but they're going to be charts and graphs and should be pretty good. I got 1 month left to write it.
Oh my goodness. You're right. Get to work. Good thing you're not in Antwerp.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question we left off at is you said a well-managed team can do that. So are the Yankees a well-managed team?
I don't think they are. I think, there's like an organizational philosophy that's a problem. And I've been trying to write this post all week and I just haven't gotten around to putting all the data through. I think there's pretty good reason to believe that this Yankee team has a really bad hitting coach. That Dylan Lawson and the two people who work for him are doing very poorly. It's remarkable when you look at kind of the baseball reference page for a bunch of other teams. Just go to a random team and look at their baseball reference page. And you see that there's a lot of players, some of them who you haven't heard very much about, who are hitting better than almost everybody on this team. Everybody on this team not named Aaron Judge, right? Hitting better than Anthony Rizzo has hit. Hitting better than Gleyber Torres has hit. Hitting better than Jake Bowers has hit. Maybe not Billy McKinney, but probably eventually. And there's 3, 4, 5 guys in the team, every team like that. And the good teams, the Texas Rangers, the teams that can actually hit, there's 9 guys who are hitting better than anybody not named Judge on the Yankees. In fact, some guys hitting as well as Judge. Corey Seager is hitting like 350 right now, right? Like it is remarkable just going up and down major league rosters, how they manage to turn players who aren't that talented, who aren't that young, into much more effective major league hitters than the New York Yankees. And I have a theory. I want to test this theory. But Dylan Lawson was I think, well-regarded minor league development coach. He was the roaming batting instructor for the Yankees farm system before he was promoted to the major league team. And he had a saying, and that saying was, hit strikes hard. That was the idea. That was the Yankees mantra in the minor leagues, is that they wanted to swing at strikes, and when they swung, they wanted to hit them hard. And I actually think that is how a lot of Yankees have adopted, the type of swing a lot of Yankees have adopted.
It's interesting because people who have studied Anthony Volpe say he's a different hitter right now than he was when he was going through the system, because he's swinging. It seems like he's swinging everything for home runs. And we've seen Gleyber Torres doing that. Like, they get out of what they used to do naturally, I guess, and driving the ball, and trying then to just hit everything hard. Let's keep going with that.
Yeah, and we have a question from Angelo. He says, "Doesn't Judge have his own hitting coach?" And he does. That hitting coach is not allowed on the grounds of Yankee Stadium. That's probably a normal thing. I don't think that part is too crazy. But I think it's telling that the guy with his own hitting coach is the guy with a swing that works. And a lot of Yankee players have gotten worse since they've hired Dylan Lawson. So DJ LeMahieu has a messed up swing right now. Anthony Rizzo, I think, is okay. I think maybe we're just kind of seeing old Anthony Rizzo, which is why he's been good but not great. But guys like Donaldson, Volpe, Gleyber Torres, we can kind of go down the list. There's a lot of guys who aren't playing very well. Who are the guys in the Yankee system right now who are hitting well? Guys who've been at AAA. And I think there's a good case to be made that the Yankees have a better AAA hitting coach than they have a major league hitting coach, just because you have a lot of guys at AAA who are like slugging 600. One player that really struck me, I was looking around for players the Yankees could trade for. And I mean, there's a lot of players the Yankees could trade for who would be an improvement on this team. One player that stuck out to me was Andrew McCutchen. McCutchen's not young. I think he's 36.
Yeah, been there, right? He's been a Yankee.
He's been a Yankee. He's still hitting. He's hitting great. He's hitting better than anybody in the Yankees not named Judge. He's still running. He's faster than anybody in the Yankees not named Volpe, I believe. Playing a good outfield. He's playing, DHing a decent amount. They're giving him rest because he's kind of old. He's back in Pittsburgh. And it just strikes me that Pittsburgh just signed him and he hit. And I can't remember the last time that's happened to a Yankee, where they signed a player or they traded for a player and they just performed as expected or above expectations.
Except for these guys when they're pulling them off the scrap.
Well, I think the minor league guys, the Yankees are great at, right? Like they can find a Jake Bowers and, get a little juice out of that, and that's fine. And Billy McKinney is looking good right now. Or Jose Trevino last year, I think, was a good example of those kind of players. But there's just something that feels wrong that the longer these players stay on the team, the worse they get.
That's true. Yeah, and we've talked about that. Yeah. That the Yankees have this ability to find these guys. They catch lightning in a bottle, but pretty soon they turn back into Cinderella.
Yeah, and again, if you get half a year out of a coach out of a pumpkin, I think that's a good. That's good. That's something the Yankees are very good at. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that the Yankees they're just bad at hitting coaching. And I really hope that the Yankees are reevaluating everything that they do, not just their individual coaches, all the other processes in their organization, all of it, because they are right now the worst hitting club in the majors. They can't just blame this on Aaron Judge being out. If you just look up and down the lineup, there are a lot of players who are hitting well below where they've hit recently, well below their career averages, well below their expectations. And I mean, I don't know what you do when everybody is suffering from the same thing other than blame your hitting coach.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So let me ask you this other question, sort of on the same thing. Judge had a sprained toe, then it became, I don't know, a broken toe, and then all of a sudden over the weekend,
it is a torn ligament in his toe.
Correct, and the Yankees didn't say that; it was Judge, and we've seen this. It's going to be a week, then it's 5 weeks, right? Like, it's just a minor thing, and maybe all the teams.
Let me defend the Yankees there for the Yankees were actually very uncertain. After the injury, they're like, we don't know. We could be back in a week.
Right, but how do you not know it's a torn ligament after just a couple of days? I did hear somebody say, it's probably too early to put him in the MRI machine. Well, why?
Well, so
why not find out? Why not do it immediately?
It
seems like other teams do that.
It's not clear to me that I mean, they learned eventually. They did MRI him, and they learned eventually that it was. I think we heard strain, and now we're hearing tear. Those are a matter of degrees, right? A tear and a strain are a strain is just a less severe tear. I sympathize with them saying this is just a weird baseball injury. It's not an injury that they're used to evaluating. As somebody who had a torn ligament in his knee, and it took many MRIs to find it, sometimes I think this is not an easy science, especially when it's something that's kind of hard to find, like a relatively small ligament in the toe. A ligament that, they probably had to wait for the swelling to go down. I imagine that there's good reasons for that. And I do think the Yankees were pretty honest with us with the Judge injury, because their answer was look, we're not sure. He's got good doctors. Sometimes I think there's just a little more uncertainty here than we like to give him credit for, especially with injuries that we're not used to, right? If he had, pulled an oblique, we have data and evidence of how long that takes to get back. Whereas if you run into a door,
in the
Tara,
stadium in right field with cement underneath.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think the Yankees should be really pissed at the Dodgers.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because this was not like an injury. This was not like a soft tissue injury from a player who gets a lot of injuries, right? This is a guy ran into a door that was improper, and as a result, could be out for quite a long time. That said, for the Yankees, I mean, I don't think you can count on Judge coming back anytime soon. I think they should think about trading for a right fielder. I think McCutchen is a great example. I think he's getting traded. The Pirates are 5 games back. They had a strong start, but they've been kind of bad lately. McCutchen's good. It shouldn't cost that much. I think the Yankees could go and get him. They might have like luxury tax problems and all of that. Who knows? But I think like that's the kind of player the Yankees really should trade for, just because I don't know when they can't count on Judge coming back, and these games still count. I'm not sure if they will. I still think it's amazing that someone like Esteban Florial is not being tried in the majors. But I think that's where we are right now with Judge. It's kind of it's a wait and see, and you just have to count on not having him for a bit. And you don't want him to come back early. You do not want to hobble Aaron Judge out there. I don't want him coming back when he can only DH. Let it heal. This is a team that should be able to win without Aaron Judge. I kind of like Aaron Boone's comments there. Like, look, there's players on this team who are supposed to be good. They're not supposed to be batting 180. Now, I think the follow-up question, if I'm a journalist at that press conference, is, okay, so what are you doing? Right? Why is everybody at the same time not playing well? Is that your fault, coach? And that's the follow-up question that frustrates me. But I think Aaron Boone's basic argument that Anthony Rizzo and Giancarlo Stanton, all these guys are talented, is correct, and they're stuck here anyway. Other than a few guys we can talk about like Donaldson, I don't think anyone's getting released anytime soon. And so, they got to perform. And frankly, if they're hitting 180 as a group and Aaron Judge comes back with a 1,000 OPS, it's still not going to be a good team. You still need more guys than one who are actually hitting.
Yeah. So again, my thought was let's see where we are when they get to the All-Star break. But if they go 9-4 or whatever I suggested, I still don't think they're that good. I think they're just going to be beating up on inferior teams. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is be self-reflective and say, you know what, our record says one thing, looking at how everybody's performing says another. So maybe the answer is as simple as let's get a better hitting coach. I don't know that, obviously.
I don't see why not. Like, to me,
but maybe that's the answer, right? and then that fixes it. And then you go, they
clearly have a coaching staff, a hitting coaching staff that is doing something wrong, or at least isn't doing something right. Give it a try. Fire them and try something else.
What do you think about that philosophy? We're not hitting coaches. We're not students of hitting, but the idea of hit strikes hard is something that, throughout my baseball career, the way people have always taught hitting is obviously you want to hit the ball hard, but that's not necessarily the way I've ever heard or often heard people talk about hitting. Hit it where it's pitched, go with the pitch, inside out, take it the other way. Guys like Rod Carew, Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn, these guys didn't hit the ball softly all the time, but they didn't necessarily hit the ball hard. It wasn't always, muscling up. It was go with the pitch. Sometimes you have to do the little things. You play little ball, you hit behind the runner or whatever, but take the ball the other way. Gleyber Torres, when he's hitting, seems to be better hitting center field to right field rather than driving to drive the ball over the fence, as an example. So to me, the theory of just hit the ball hard sounds like something that isn't going to work long-term for many hitters, because it's going to take them out of the habits of what they've been doing good. Just on a gut level, because again, we're not hitting coaches. What do you think of that philosophy?
I mean, one, it's not working, right? So whatever the philosophy is, it's failing right now. The Yankees are one of the worst offenses in the league without Aaron Judge. With Aaron Judge, they're one of the worst in the league. Without Aaron Judge, they are as bad as the Oakland Athletics. And they're getting worse. They go into slumps. They know the slumps don't get corrected. I don't know what the cause here is. My instinct is that the Yankees were very early into exit velocity. If you remember, before Aaron Judge was promoted in 2017, the thing that like we had never heard before, but the quote from Brian Cashman was like, you should see his exit velo numbers. And then they trade for Giancarlo Stanton. So all of a sudden the Yankees have two of the hardest hitting players in the league. They also have Gary Sanchez, who was successful because he hit the ball very hard. I think they got Luke Voigt out of the minors because he hit the ball very hard. And I think people were underappreciating that.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second because Mike Whiteman put up Charlie Lau hitting. I don't remember Charlie Lau. Now, I could be wrong, saying hit the ball hard. I remember Charlie Lau, and he was George Brett in the Royals, and then one of his disciples was Walt Herniak, who went to the Red Sox, who's a Red Sox coach, who then coached guys like Wade Boggs. I don't remember that being the philosophy. I remember the philosophy, especially George Brett, waiting, stay back, all the weight on your back leg, and then drive through the ball. I don't know if that, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if
his Wikipedia page lists a whole bunch of mechanical stuff that he used to say a lot. So maybe
so I'd like if Mike can, if he could let us know what he means by Charlie Lau hitting. Did Charlie Lau say that, or should the Yankees? Is he saying the Yankees should look to do more of a Charlie Lau approach, go with the pitch, wait back, that kind of thing? So go on. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'll just hire anyone. Like trade for the. I don't care. Trade for the Royals hitting coach for all I care at this point. I think if you look at one of the things that when we first figured out the StatCast stats is sometimes hitting the ball hard is bad.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. Yes.
So sometimes hitting the ball hard leads to more outs because you don't get singles. Your fly balls don't drop in. And occasionally that leads to doubles and home runs, and that's good. But often it doesn't. And so you would end up, if you hit the ball hard all the time, you actually might end up with a lower batting average, and you'll see you're like Aaron Judge, and you're just inhuman. Maybe that explains why Giancarlo Stanton has a pretty big gap between his actual performance and his StatCast numbers. Because he hits the ball so inhumanly hard, like no one else does, that he's easier to field sometimes. Doesn't get bloop singles, doesn't get the batting average bolstered that way. But also just like different advice for different players, right? Like I don't think Anthony Volpe should be trying to hit 105-mile-an-hour exit velos right now. He can do it. We've seen some pretty fun exit velos out of Volpe at times. But it's clearly not working. Like he clearly can't do that all the time against major league pitching, at least not yet. Maybe if Anthony Volpe was trying to hit the ball a little softer, and I don't mean like choking up on the bat and all that kind of stuff. Not a lot of players can do that. All these successful major league players we're talking about, they're not all doing like Anthony Rizzo stuff. They're just doing more like basic fundamental hitting. I mean, like I don't know. Like to me, it is baffling to me why this is not like a 5-alarm fire for the Yankees, because it is now 2 and arguably 3 or 4 seasons in a row where, other than a few standouts, before Judge, it was DJ LeMahieu, everybody is hitting worse than expected. And the players that hit better are the players who come in from another organization who don't listen. Anthony Rizzo, I don't think, is being heavily coached by Dylan Lawson. Matt Carpenter, right? He reinvented his swing in the minors, and the Yankees picked him up, and he got hot.
Jake Bauers, right? The Yankees didn't reinvent his swing, right? He reinvented. Well,
he's been at AAA, so I'm willing to give the AAA. If you look at the AAA team, like it's amazing how well some of these guys are hitting. So I'm willing to entertain the idea that the AAA hitting staff is doing something right now. Maybe something that only works at AAA. Who knows? I think the gap between AAA and the majors is getting bigger every year. The International League has actually become a bit of a bandbox. It used to be that only the Pacific Coast League and then in AAA was really, really hitter friendly. But if you look at the numbers right now, I think there's about 6 runs per game being scored in the International League right now. It's incredible. So there's something going on there, but still the Yankees are hitting very, very well. I think they're the best hitting team in the International League this year. And there's a lot of guys like Estevan Florial who are having the best seasons of their career. So it could be something going on there. Could be something that happened outside the organization. You think about a guy like Harrison Bader, doesn't seem like he's changed very much since he was a Cardinal. So like I think that if the Yankees were to fire their hitting coach and replace them with literally anybody else, the AAA hitting coach, I'm ready to be like, just call up Derek Jeter. I'm in that boat right now. If they did that, I think this team gets better, and I don't see how it could get worse. Right? What are you gonna do? You can bat 170 instead of 180. You're like, there's not a lot of room for this team to fall. And you look at what Aaron Hicks is doing right now for the Orioles. And you wonder if the Yankees release Josh Donaldson. It sounds like they might. Is he going to get picked up by a team, say the Angels, who desperately need a third baseman, and all of a sudden start hitting like 280? Maybe. Right. And there's some other players who've kind of gone back to their old selves after leaving the Yankees, like Joey Gallo.
A number of years ago, a guy like Mark Reynolds did that. The Yankees had him for a very short period of time. There was that other first baseman guy who's Luke Voigt-ish.
G-Man Choi?
No, he was
Chris Carter.
No, and he actually, I think he went to the Red Sox. He went to the Orioles and actually did well for a couple of years. He was like a Luke Voigt type player. I can't think of his name for the life of me, but that was a guy who left the Yankees and started hitting. But that was a whole different team, the different coaching staff and everything else. But he was an example of that.
It is conspicuous that there's a lot of Yankees who are hitting very well right now. A lot of former Yankees, and no Yankees who are hitting well currently on the team. It's conspicuous that the Yankees go into long slumps. I think it's conspicuous that the Yankees are overly reliant on the home run. Not that home runs are bad, but that they're not getting singles and walks and all those types of things. It's conspicuous that they're striking out a ton. Some of that you can blame maybe on the personnel, on not having, on the players being old or not good or whatever. But when it's every player at the same time, I think you got to blame the coaching staff. And to me, that's the first thing I look at. Now, let me now be an optimist for a second. We have a comment here that we might go to. So before I talk about something that's not hitting, I'm going to be an optimist. Angelo says, back in the old days, your power hitters would have been Judge, Rizzo, and Stanton. Everyone else in the lineup were contact hitters. So I don't think that's the right way to think about it, frankly. A lot of the teams right now who are hitting, they got a lot of power hitters. I don't think that the individual performances matter that much. What I mean is that, like, I don't think how well Josh Donaldson is hitting depends on how well Stanton or Rizzo or Judge are hitting. I think they could all be power hitters if you wanted to. I think the problem is that the Yankees haven't been able to coach players who aren't Aaron Judge, right? Or Anthony Rizzo, right? There's a couple of players the Yankees have successfully coached, and other than that, it doesn't seem very successful. Now, I'll tell you, Dylan Lawson, when he came up, he was a very well-respected minor league development coach. But the Yankees don't have a great record of people being developed under Dylan Lawson, right? Esteban Florial never really emerged into anything, didn't really have much of a swing. We can talk about Anthony Volpe, who did play with did have a big breakout year under Lawson. I think he was Lawson's big success story at high A, right? Anthony Volpe was the best hitter in the minor leagues in his age 20 year, I think it was, where he was mostly at high A, a little bit of double A. And that was impressive as hell, right? That's the reason why Anthony Volpe became a top prospect. And I think that's one of the reasons why Lawson got promoted. But I can't name any Lawson successes, right? Like, I can't name a single player who came up through the minor leagues under him who had success in the major leagues. I can name players before him. I can name players having success now and last year, the last couple of years, who might eventually hit the majors. But he didn't coach Gleyber Torres. He didn't coach Aaron Judge. He didn't coach Gary Sanchez. I think Clint Frazier was him. Esteban Florial was him. I just don't see the reason for the faith. I get that he's probably a smart guy. Maybe he's a good minor league coach. One of the things the Yankees did at the beginning of the season is they brought in Omar Minaya.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
I mean,
Brian Sabian.
I mean, the mandate there was player development, right? It was transition players between the minors and the majors. I don't know what they're doing because the Yankees haven't changed anything there. They appear to have gotten worse, in my opinion. And I mean, maybe Oswald Peraza will come up once he gets healthy again, and this and some of that will pay off. Maybe we'll hear stuff after the season about how important they were. But to me, like, that's still a priority. And I just don't know what I don't know what the solution is. I would love, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I love them at least to bring in an old school hitting coach type. Charlie Lau maybe, that type of player, right? Lau's dead, but like that type of coach. The name that comes to mind, and this is just a crazy name off the top of my head, is like Willie Randolph comes in and is the old school guy to go with some new school guys as well. I would like to see that. I don't know who that. It's hard to do that mid-season, which is why I think mid-season usually you're talking about like promoting your AAA hitting coach, or again calling in Derek Jeter. So I don't know, or A-Rod or something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution here is, but it is amazing to me how steady the Yankees are, at least when they talk to the media. Nothing is wrong. Keep doing what you're doing. Trust the process. And I agree with that in the short term, right? Like, baseball is a sport of luck. I mean, a tremendous amount of random variation in baseball. And as a statistician, I mean, I watch baseball and I feel that. Like, I feel that a guy going 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts isn't representative of much at all. But a guy going 2 for 48, Giancarlo Stanton, that tells that's different. That is something real. 7 guys going 2 for 48 is very real, and it's not a small sample. 2, 3, 4 seasons of
the same thing.
Thing is a sign that something is wrong, and that the process that you're trusting is flawed.
And so, going back to the top of the hour, right? This is my overriding thought. Call me a pessimist. I don't see the Yankees. Of course, there's hope. I wrote this the other day too. There's always hope. Yeah, sure. Rodon could go 10-0 like Aaron Small all those years ago. I wish I could think of that guy who played first and third base. I think he did. I think he was a first baseman who played for the Red Sox and the Orioles, who started to hit because he was a nobody and he had like 2 or 3 good seasons. But I was looking when you were talking before. Can't think of his name. But now I lost my train of thought with the other thought. But because the Yankees are following the same script year after year after year, I don't think any of those things are likely. I think it's most likely that the Yankees that we've seen these last number of years are the Yankees that we're going to see for the rest of this year and through the playoffs. And while good things could happen, they probably won't. I'd bet again, and I don't bet, but I'd bet against good things happening. So part of me feels like, wouldn't it make sense to maximize your roster, the guys who you're not bringing back, and build some excitement for next year by moving those guys and getting yourself some guys who go with a different approach. What's the old saying? Do something over and over again is the definition of insanity. And it just seems that way, that's the Yankees are. We're going to be sitting here in October saying the same thing. And rather than sitting here in October with the same exact team and then watching Severino sign somewhere else and Bader sign somewhere else, because I wouldn't re-sign those guys, and Wandy Peralta sign somewhere else and whatever, I'd rather move them now and be excited about the players they get who might actually help them win in 2023, but who most likely would help them more win in 2024. So that's where we slightly disagree.
Let me just be the optimist again, right? Like, I think Carlos Rodon's really, really good.
Oh, I do too. We were thrilled when he got him.
Going every 5th, but he's coming back. And they've been very slow with him. I think they've been very cautious because they signed into a big contract, and maybe that they're thinking about the future. Probably the same when Aaron Judge starts coming back, they'll probably be thinking the same thing. He was the big signing, right? He was the difference between last year and this year. In hindsight, they absolutely should have signed a hitter, right? I think at the time we were disagreeing a little bit there, but I was like, I don't need a starting pitcher. I'll take Carlos Rodon. That's great. And then after he was signed, Brian Cashman said, we're not done yet.
Yes.
And then nothing happened.
and then nothing
Right.
happened. All
And to
winter
me,
we kept
that's
saying,
the key. That's the key error that they made,
yes.
is that they didn't sign a hitter. They signed a player that they didn't need.
Oh, I think they
But
needed pitching. I'll disagree there. They needed a pitcher. I think that was great. But my feeling is the Yankees have the resources, if they really want to get that pitcher, which they did, and also get a hitter. There's no reason they couldn't.
while I agree, I mean, I think the Yankees are spending a lot of money this season.
No doubt.
I'm no longer like last season and the season before, they were outspent by a bunch of teams that they shouldn't have been outspent by. In a world without the Mets, this looks like a very expensive Yankees roster. I think the Yankees are just not getting the most out of their roster with what they're spending money on. I have no idea why Brian Cashman renewed the contract of Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Right, that's $8 million. I think.
Okay, either way,
right, a lot of money that could have gone toward Andrew McCutchen. Right, imagine if instead of having IKF, you had Andrew McCutchen on this team. It's a completely different lineup in that way. In that scenario, the Donaldson trade turned out to be not just a disaster of a trade, but a trade that really constrained in other things you could do. Imagine if you could reallocate Donaldson's $22 million.
Right. So just on that same thought, I don't think the Yankees are cheap. They're not cheap. I think they don't spend smartly, and then they're sort of like spend. I don't know what the definition would be, like a guy in a Wild West town who has a fistful of dollars or something and goes in and spends it all and then rues the fact that he doesn't have anything left to spend, like without thinking about it. Right.
This is maybe a very New York City way to think about this, but this is a conversation when people study poverty that I like. I think the Yankees are buying their toilet paper at a bodega. I just went back from Costco. Right. I bought a whole bunch of toilet paper for not that much money. And the reason why I did is because I bought it efficiently. I bought it in Costco. You buy it in bulk.
Yes, this is what I'm saying.
You buy 2 rolls of toilet paper, and it costs you 5 times as much per roll as it does buying it in bulk. If you look at the Yankees payroll, they have a lot of guys who cost money who aren't that good. I mentioned a couple of them already, but just running down the list of costs right here, right? Franchi Cordero is getting paid $1 million for this team, well above the league minimum. Frankie Montas is probably not going to pitch at all this year, getting paid $7.5 million. IKF, you mentioned, is at $6 million. You're right about that. Lou Trevino not getting paid anything this year, getting paid $4 million. Jonathan Loaizaga getting paid $2.2 million. Wandy Peralta getting paid $3.3 million. There's just a lot of that adds up real quick. That adds up to another signing. Brandon Nimmo, real quick, right? Of just players who are providing nothing or are good. Wandy Peralta, I think, is a fine pitcher. But you can't have a bullpen full of guys making $3 or $4 million today, because that just all of a sudden becomes 20.
Right. And unless you're willing to spend over certain luxury tax limits. So you have to look at. I think your example is absolutely correct. Go to Dollar Tree or whatever it is, right? Dollar Tree, right? Yeah, these glasses, they're $1. I buy them at Dollar Tree. They work. They're great. I don't need to spend $52 or $175 on a pair of readers, so I get these for $1, and then I have other money to spend somewhere else. But if I buy $500 glasses, then I don't have that money to spend somewhere else. But it's not that I'm being cheap; it's that I'm not spending my money wisely. My eyes are good enough that I don't have to spend $500 on glasses.
I think the metaphor is breaking down. I think I think the Yankees are paying $4 million for a player they could have for the minimum.
That's sort of what I'm saying.
Well, so sometimes you go to Dollar Tree, you buy a $1 or whatever. I don't know what your glasses actually cost, right? A $5 pair of glasses.
They're $1.
Right. You could buy a $5 pair of glasses, $1 pair of glasses, and then throw it away in a month and then buy another pair. And that's fine. That's economical. You could go to Lens Crafters and buy a $600 pair of glasses, which is insane. That's a different conversation. And hopefully your insurance covers a little bit, and then you wear that for a long time and you're very happy with it. The Yankees are in the middle, right? They're buying a $50 pair of glasses, which lasts for 18 months. And then they're buying another $50 pair of glasses, and again. And they're not getting value out of that, but they're also not getting the benefits of flexibility, right? I think it's, you and I disagree about this a little bit. I think it's great that they can find a Billy McKinney or a Jake Bowers and get value out of those guys, but they're also making the league minimum. And so doing that allows you to spend that money in good ways. But the problem is they're paying replacement level players $6 million. And so they end up with a hollow roster. And they can't go out and if they don't want to, there's a budget. Like I accept that there's a budget. I'm not a Yankee fan who thinks that the Yankees should spend what the Mets are spending. I think that's bad for baseball. I think $293 million is a lot of money that should be enough to create a really good roster. It is enough to get an Aaron Judge and a Garrett Cole. Aaron Judge is getting paid $40 million. Cole's getting 36. Rodon's getting 27. Stanton's getting 25. Rizzo's getting 20, right? Like it's enough to go out and sign a bunch of guys who are really good. But it doesn't work if you supplement those guys, surround those guys with a bunch of guys who are getting paid $4 million who are no better than Esteban Florial sitting in AAA. And to me, that is the recent sin of Brian Cashman. And the reason why it happens all the time, again and again and again, is that the Yankees are trying to build a roster that can win a lot of baseball games, but not spend, but essentially, but not go into a rebuild mode. So I think the classic example of this is DJ LeMahieu, who they re-signed rather than going and getting, or signed rather than getting Manny Machado. Right.
Yeah, actually, those were different seasons, I think, but the same idea.
The Yankees could have, instead of Rizzo, and you take Rizzo's salary and add like whatever Frankie Montas's salary, and that gets you Freddie Freeman.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right? And yes. Freddie Freeman was the reason why the Dodgers are able to do that is because they're not paying an IKF $6 million every year. They don't make the trade for Josh Donaldson, who's getting paid a lot of money. I mean, an average annual value of $25 million for Josh Donaldson. Getting paid a lot of money, but was not nearly as good as had they gone out and signed Corey Seager for a similar amount of money. The Corey Seager would be a little bit more expensive. The Yankees
and for a longer amount of time. In the Yankees' defense on that, Donaldson's done after this year.
He is done after this year, and they're going to love that cap space, right? They're going to love the money.
There's an $8 million buyout or something like that.
Yeah, but I think his average annual, the Yankees, to their credit, I think about the luxury tax, not about the actual amount of money they're spending. So, for example, Giancarlo Stanton is getting paid, I forget what it is, but like far above his cap hit. It's one of the reasons why they traded for him is because he had a good contract in terms of
and I think tax. The Marlins are paying some of that or whatever.
And I think the last 2 seasons of the contract, it goes down. They spend $10 million. They cover about $10 million, which will take the cap hit from the Yankees in those years. And so I like the Yankees they're always kind of looking for those types of luxury tax deals. And I just think that's the wrong way to approach it, right? Like you still get to the same number, $293 million, if you spend less money on better players than if you spend more money on fewer players. Now, the advantage is that, again, you don't have the decline years of a Corey Seager or something like that on the roster.
But they're paying $25 million for the decline years of Josh Donaldson.
Well, right. Well, and they never get the good years of Josh Donaldson.
That's correct.
Right? That's the problem. The problem is that they've locked themselves into this world where, other than Judge and Cole and now Rodon, they don't have elite players. And that's a problem when you're not developing hitters. There's a lot of teams out there that don't really bring a lot of prospects up all the time, and they still manage to win games. I mean, we talked about Andrew McCutchen, guy who the Yankees could have had, hitting pretty well right now. Like the Yankees could get by with a few more guys like that. And the way you would do it is, instead of trading for Josh Donaldson, you would sign a $5 million, Andrew McCutchen on a 1-year deal, whatever he's getting paid. I think this is the thing that Brian Cashman is bad at. It is in part caused by this kind of win now mentality, in part caused by, I think, the Yankees trying to be smarter than other teams, and they're not. Like they're on the pitching. They are on pitching and minor league signings. They are the best at baseball at those two things. And that has allowed them to put together an elite bullpen year after year. The Yankees have the best bullpen in the majors this year. Right? That's great. It will, I think, allow them to put together an elite starting rotation by the end of this season and going forward. I have faith in that all of those guys will be good. I now believe in Clark Schmidt. I believe that if Cortez is healthy, he'll be fine. I believe that Severino is just having a little bit of a bump in the road and he'll be fine. Like Cole and Rodon are two of the best pitchers in baseball. Like, I believe that the Yankees can do that, but they are not good at regular old major league players. You can't build a team on minor league players. You can supplement a team on minor league signings, minor league free agents. You cannot build a team on it. And until they fix that, this team is not going to be an elite team.
Which is why I say, I think if no matter how they do if they do poorly, it's not a mirage because the reality comes. But if they do really well, it's going to be a mirage. But you know what, EJ, we're at the top of the hour. As always, great talk. I got to go do some research and find out the name of that guy who.
I was looking around. I can't figure out who you're talking about.
Oh my goodness, Yankees had him for like a minute at the end of the year. He's a right-handed hitter. He hit a bunch of home runs a couple of years, I think, for the Red Sox and the Orioles. I just can't get it. It's one of those things that, like, I think his last name begins with an S, but I just can't pull it up. But anyway, we're at the end of the hour. Maybe next week I'll begin with that name and everybody will say, what are you talking about? But that'll be great. EJ, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you right back here Monday night. Everybody, thanks for watching. It's always fun here on the Start Spreading the News Yankee Show.